One second.
I love it. So I can like sort of this way and because that never worked. This is much better.
Good evening, everybody. It is now 6:06, and I would like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome those of you that are participating in the Board of Education meeting, those of you that are here in person tonight, and those of you that are watching via live streaming on YouTube. We would ask that anyone addressing the board to please use the microphone at the podium and to identify themselves for the record. As a reminder, the link to the meeting is on the district webpage under the Board of Education. The streaming will run through the end of the meeting, and in the event of a disruption, the audio portion, I will pause the meeting until it is reestablished. All board members are present and participating in the meeting this evening. Dr. Elder, would you please announce the meeting?
Madam President, this meeting has been announced in accordance with the Open Meetings Resolution and is a legally constituted meeting of the Los Lunas Schools Board of Education.
Thank you. I guess Mrs. Nancy Montoya, can you help us with the Pledge of Allegiance tonight? Because I'm looking around whose name I know, and you get the torch tonight. Thank you. To the flag. Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Elder, are there any changes or deletions to the agenda tonight?
Madam President, I do have a couple of recommendations.
Okay.
One is to remove number 13. Pending some additional information that we're waiting on. We want to be able to give the board a complete picture of the possible action. And my next agenda item is to proposal to move number 15 to be between 6 and 7. And that would enable Mr. Sullivan from NMSBA to not sit through the whole entire meeting before he presents.
Thank you. So item 15, you're recommending that we move up maybe perhaps under item 7?
Sure.
Would that work?
Yep.
Okay, so the superintendent has requested a couple of changes, gentlemen, to the agenda. I need a motion on the agenda.
Was that two items, two differences?
Yes, sir. It would be deleting 13 completely and moving item number 15 and moving it under 7, so it would become 8.
Madam President,
Go ahead, sir.
I move that we remove item 13 and move item number 15 under number 7 for the June 20th board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Guidon. So I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I got a second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion on the agenda? Not hearing any discussion. Mr. Guidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
To vote yes, agenda is approved. As announced and posted in accordance with the New Mexico Open Meetings Act and the Los Lunas School Board of Education Open Meetings Resolution, a quorum of the Los Lunas Board of Education participated in a closed executive session on June 20th, 2023, beginning at 5 p.m. The purpose of this closed executive session was for the discussion regarding the following items: possible acquisition and purchase of real property, specifically discussion regarding a possible acquisition, purchase of real property pursuant to section 1015-1 H8 of the Open Meetings Act. Discussion regarding possible acquisition or purchase of real property. And number two, we met with legal counsel to discuss pending or threatened litigation as permitted under sections 10-1-15 H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, specifically a letter received from the Foundation for Open Government. No action was taken, nor were other topics discussed. Now to agenda item 6, which is presentation and approval of New Mexico NMFA and delegation resolution and board election resolution proclamation. Mr. Harrington and Art Melendres are present from Modrell Sperling. They are our bond counsels. Excuse me, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, superintendent. Our friend Eric is unfortunately unable to be here. Kaylee's here in case you have any questions. Kaylee has given a presentation to the Finance Committee, and I think materials have been presented to you before. If you have questions from Kaylee, she's happy to answer them. From my point of view, we have 2 resolutions before you tonight. One of them is an election resolution, and this is for the November 7th, 2023 election. At that election, the voters of the Los Lunas schools will be asked a number of things. One, to select candidates to become board members. Number 2, they will be giving approval of a general obligation bond. Number 3, they will approve a tax levy in the amount of, we say, 2 mills, $2 per 1,000 of assessed valuation. And then a final question that will be presented to the voters is the capital improvements tax, which is for 3 mills or $3 per 1,000. So the election resolution is before you. It has, as I say, a number of items. So I should point out that the candidates, there will be 3 persons who will be elected to the Board of Education. And August 29th, under our state law, is the one day from 8 in the morning till the end of the day that you, as a candidate, go to the county clerk's office and file your declaration of candidacy. So the paperwork is got more pages than I care to refer to all the time, but it is in accordance with New Mexico election law, and it is in accordance with the issuance of bonds and the approval of the tax levy. And I know you have a lengthy agenda, so on this first resolution, I'm happy to stand for any questions that you have. If not,
Any questions on the resolution? Otherwise, we would need a vote.
I would give this back to the superintendent for a recommendation for approval of the election resolution.
Madam President, I would recommend approval of the election resolution.
Okay, Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I'll get the ball rolling. So I move that we approve the election resolution as presented.
So I got a motion to approve the election resolution as presented. Do I get a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Vickers and I got a second by Mr. Hedon. Any discussion, gentlemen?
Is there a number tied to that resolution or just title all?
It's just titled.
Okay,
It doesn't have a specific.
all right, thank you.
Any other discussion or questions? Not hearing any, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote. How do you vote, Mr. Hidon?
Yeah.
How do you vote, Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
How do you vote, Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Resolution calling for the election passes. And we do need to sign that, and we'll take a break in a minute to do so. Go ahead, you have another one, sir?
Yes. There is one more resolution before you this evening, and that is a notice of sale of $11 million of general obligation bonds, which the voters approved a couple of years ago. And with the pandemic and all the things that have gone on, we are at this point where bonds will be issued in the amount of $11 million. You have selected to go to the New Mexico Finance Authority, who is in the process of making a determination, which we are confident will be affirmative, which is to provide funding for the $11 million. So this also is in accordance with New Mexico law. I want to point out one thing. A number of years ago, the legislature passed a law which permits the board to delegate to the superintendent the authority to sign a bond purchase agreement and a bond award with the New Mexico Finance Authority. And the reason for this is certainly not your district, but I must say there were a number of smaller school districts around the state who from time to time would have trouble getting their board together and getting a quorum. And in the process that we used to use, you advertise in the newspaper that on this date, the board will meet and will authorize the sale of the bonds. And here we were with not a quorum. And then we had to, under that old law, had to go through the whole process again to publish notice and to create a new meeting. And so the legislature said that if the board approves the sale of the bonds and is willing to delegate to the superintendent, then without a second meeting, the award of the bonds can be made. Now, in the resolution, there are certain parameters which you would be reviewing and approving. So you're not just giving a blank check or a blank sign to the superintendent. The parameters are set out on page 5 of this resolution, and they contain the maximum interest rate, the maximum amount, and they have a form of bond that is attached and a just make on that just a second. And after the form of the bond, they have an agreement with the New Mexico Finance Authority to act as the registrar paying agent agreement. And so all of those documents are attached. But the key point here is that the voters have authorized issuance of these bonds, and this is scheduled to occur without a tax rate increase, because the way that your financial advisor has scheduled your sale of bonds, some will be paid off, and that opens up a window to add new debt, if you will. And so your tax rate will remain flat or even. And so there is no concern about that for citizens of the school district. And so the purpose is to erect, remodel, and make additions to school buildings or to purchase property. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Board members, any questions? No, done. Looks like you're off the hook for questions. All right, then I need a motion to approve the resolution concerning bonds. Yes, sir.
I move that we approve the notice of bond sale resolution.
So Mr. Smith has made a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hidon. Any discussion, gentlemen? Not hearing any. Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Resolution passes. And do you have the original resolutions?
Yes,
Okay, and we'll stop and sign those right now.
it should take just a couple minutes. Karen.
Can't make it that easy.
Okay. So we'll be in 5-minute recess just so we can sign these documents real quick. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Nice. This recess and the meeting back to order. It is now 6:26. Next item on the agenda is going to be from the amended agenda. Actually, no, I believe we are on item 7, which is public comment. Madam Superintendent, do we have any public comment?
No, Madam President, we do not.
Thank you. So now on the amended agenda, we are going to be hearing from the board discussion and possible action to make any changes if necessary to the superintendent search plan, including dates. I'll ask for Mr. Sullivan to come up.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, members of the board, Dr. Elder, staff, and community members. It's a pleasure to be here. I apologize for not being with you at your last meeting. I don't think I've ever been sick a day in my life. I've thought about it 2 different ways. Either I've been involved with students in education for so long that I have a good immune system, or no self-respecting germ would inhabit this body. Still trying to weigh those 2 alternative explanations. But my wife was sick and she made me follow protocol, so I could not come to be with you guys a couple of weeks ago. She was a medical lab technologist for 20 years. So I don't get away with anything. But anyway, just a quick update, and then we can maybe get down to a little bit of work. You may recall that the advertisement for the superintendent vacancy was advertised on July 7th. We have already had a good bit of interest. I think we've had 8 this was earlier today, and I have not checked this afternoon. We had 8 packets already requested and 6 returned. That's pretty good this early in the game. Typically, there's a flurry of activity towards the end of a window of this nature, but I was pleased to see that. What I do have, I have a couple of handouts that I wanted us to, wanted you to have this timeline, but I'd like to go through a couple of other items while you maybe hold on to this, be looking at it at the reference point. And I brought extras. I'll let
If we can have our attorney have a copy and then each of us down the road.
yeah.
Okay. You.
The reason I wanted to follow this with you a little bit is because, as you can see, the next event is advisory committee orientations. And again, another handout, if you don't mind. This is a sample graph. The change, I believe, is that the page that we have emails for individually attached. But this was a relevant introduction letter to nominees. Inviting them to this presentation session next on that timeline. We have information Tuesday, 7 at 7 p.m. or Wednesday, the 28th at 4 p.m. That's to accommodate your nominees' schedules as best we can so that they don't feel locked in. We are also making it possible for folks to participate virtually. We think it is far better if they can come in person, but we realize that there can be family emergencies and the like. And I talked with Mr. Chavez earlier, and he's given me the name of his colleague, and we'll work out a way in this room to make sure that any of the nominees who want to participate but can't physically be here will still have the opportunity, part of the orientation, so they can move forward and be part of your interview teams. We're still wrestling with a couple of email addresses. We have a kind of a And I thought I had it here. Yeah, we do. I'm not handing this out, but this is a grid that we're keeping track of. You guys gave us names in the different categories. We're keeping track of who we've heard from, whether they've confirmed yet their participation, and eventually we'll find out which of the meetings they wish to attend, but it doesn't matter. The size of the meetings with the groups that you've identified, it won't be a problem. We're planning to meet here. I don't wish for it to be a lecture hall. I think we'll be able to get fairly intimate and make it a casual type of affair. But since I just learned that your attorney is here, I want to reassure all of you that we will cover all the do's and don'ts of proper interviews. These folks may or may not have much experience in public sector interviewing. So we will go over some of those things with them, including EEOC requirements. You know, we can't have somebody find out that later on that one of the candidates came from his brother-in-law's town. And so he casually asked the person at the reception the night before, how's Father Padilla these days? And that may get us in trouble. So, you know, it's sort of like, you still beat your wife. There are certain questions that kind of get yourself in trouble, and we'll make sure that we've gone over those things. We have a 2-page do and don'ts, but the public and private sector kinds of questions that one is allowed to ask are different. We will be soliciting questions. They may not be asked verbatim, but we will be getting categories through a Survey Monkey and then individual questions from these committee members. That will be part of the orientation. We'll let them know what their entire role will be, that they will be interviewing, getting feedback to you. I think we told you this during the retreat. You will not be boxed in. Their role will be clearly explained to them during the orientation session. Stop there and I'll take a breath and see if you have any questions so far. And some of this I'm going over that you guys have heard before, but this is maybe helpful to some of the public as well.
And you said that would be here in this central office?
This is where we would like to do it. And I know that I'm not sure whether it would be Ms. Elder or you who would be able to help us with someone after hours that would help us into the building. And this gentleman and his colleague would help us with the technical things. But we would have to have access on that Tuesday evening and again on Wednesday late afternoon.
Okay.
I think I've been reintroduced to Ms. Wolf. Now we've known each other for some years, I guess. That's because I'm old and slow, but nonetheless, I think she's going to be able to help us with some of these things, at least logistics, as we move forward. Probably the most important thing on that. Do you need me to talk any further about the orientation concept? It really is important. If folks don't participate in that, I got to be honest with you, we're not going to let them participate in the interviews.
Okay. So they must attend either by
must
Zoom or in
attend.
person, the
They
orientation.
it will let them do it virtually, but they must attend. If we haven't checked off them on a sign-in sheet, we can't let them take that next step. It's not fair to the others, and there's too many risks in letting that occur in our experience.
Yes, go ahead.
So realistically, you're gonna have 15 different perspectives for questions in each committee, because we each assign 3 people to those committees.
From as far as the way they will view those candidates and give you feedback, yes, but we will be doing that. The questions will be built around characteristics that you've helped us settle upon. And we'll help them through a Survey Monkey identify key categories by their work areas themselves. You know, you got parents and staff that maybe have different focus areas. We'll get the focus areas first, then we'll also ask them, give us some examples of 2 questions you might want to be sure you hear answers to. It might not be verbatim, but we're pretty good at merging those things so that advisory committee members have told us afterwards, that was pretty darn close to the way we worded our recommended question.
Right. So that's what I was referencing was the actual questions and the development of those. You're gonna have
They'll be
15 specific.
But
So how are you gonna determine
the feedback,
which ones
to ask?
Yeah, how many questions are you gonna have for, say, the?
My guess is that we'll probably have somewhere about 17 total. There'll be an intro. And I think I laughed and I said, we have to be timing that because of the intro, when you ask them, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, why you're here today, if you're interested in Los Lunas. If they're still in a log cabin 10 to 15 minutes into it, we got to pick up the pace. Typically, that opening and then a closing. Anything else you'd need to tell us that we weren't smart enough to ask? If you have any questions for us, and then you sandwich 15 questions in between that. That'll fill up an hour easily.
Right, so 3 different groups are gonna have 3 different questions, which is what I did like that you did, because we're not gonna be asking the same questions.
That is correct. Your perspective about
Correct.
your leader is going to be different from the teachers. You know, I mean, there are going to be some commonalities. I'm sure of that.
Right. And then my other question was, you said there's 6 that have, or 5 that have returned, or 6?
We have 6 applicant packets returned as of midday today.
And when are those names released to the board?
That's part of the conversation here. Our screening was originally, we were planning to do that in executive session at your regular board meeting on the 11th. What we learned after the retreat is that, I don't know who they are because I asked Miss Garcia to tell me. 2 of you folks may be out of the country. And if we close on July 11th and screen on, close on July 7th and screen on July 11th, that's a pretty tall order unless there aren't many applicants. If there are 15 applicants or 15 plus, you guys got a lot of homework in 3 days or 4 days, especially if some of you are traveling. So I talked with my colleagues and we thought we might be able to get those to you the 3rd of July, at least those that are in. Now, we get a flurry of activity between the 3rd and the 7th. They can still turn those in. But we may be able to get you guys a jump start so that if you're on vacation, you know, you don't have to leave your family to start reading resumes and application packets overseas. But here's the other catch. If you're not going to be in district on the 11th, we got to figure out a way that you can meaningfully participate in the screening of those applicants. If you've already read the packets, and go to the couple of them. If you have access to a computer or a phone, you can meaningfully participate. If you can't, you're going to have read the applications and kind of anticipate the way the work of the quorum here might go. For example, if there were 16 applicants, nice round number, we might ask everyone if they're all together. You know, you had a chance to look at them. Who are your 8 top? Probably not with much discussion. Discussion and the arguing, fussing and mussing, whatever you call it, is it be on the 25th? Not going to spend hours on 16 or 20 applicants. You're going to spend hours on finalists. But we would try to get you down from large number to a smaller one. If you're not in town, we have to be ready to say, okay, I eliminate these. Now, we're not there yet. I want to get down to 4. So now maybe we got to 8. You're not there with the other group, but we'll already have an ask. If we got to get from 8 to 4, your top 4. Now your top 4 may not be the other top 4. So now we're going to ask you in advance to have found a proxy friend board member to carry your vote. Who would be your best 2? Pretty good chance that you're going to get 2 of your top 4 out of that. Pretty good chance. You may get all 4 of you because your colleagues may have hit the same name. But I don't think we can hold anything up on July 11th.
So I'm reading this and the window for closing is July 7th. So theoretically, we couldn't have them screened.
I don't.
Yeah,
I
I just don't see it.
I stretch for us to think maybe we can get those votes that are already submitted, because I have read out to you guys. We don't want to dribble it in. Right. Because we may even sort those that didn't meet the minimum qualification. We don't want to check for them. And I really don't want those lists out. They're asked for, there are things that must be released.
And as far as, and speaking for myself, if we're out, if we're away, we have to try to find a way tonight to make that happen, be present. Remotely, obviously.
If you can, I think that's to your advantage. If you can't, and it's absolutely impossible, what I would ask you to do is prior to executive session in some fashion or another, you can't, I don't think you can give more than one vote proxy. I don't even know whether it's allowed, but I'm just trying to figure out how can your voices be heard if you're not physically present? I think I've got your lawyer stuff.
So what, but you said vote and we're not voting
You know,
at that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're
Selection.
you're reviewing files and say, boy, I'd sure like to see these guys invited. These folks invited in as finalists for an interview, and I hope someone's on the right page with me. The other way to look at it is trust your colleagues. If you can't be there, trust the three who are here to come up with a new food for you.
Yeah, so we can find a way to be here.
Yeah, but I'm really, look at the dates we started with, May 31st to July 25th. We told you that the typical search is closer to 3 months to allow for certain windows to have reasonable contacts. This is pretty accelerated, and if we must monkey with it much more, I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think it'll be helpful.
I don't think we can monkey with it. I don't see it, but
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate it. But, we threw in the idea of a Monday evening reception. And you can make that as elaborate. You could invite the world, you could just invite advisory groups. I've seen it done with invite and tickets, virtual tickets. So there are different ways to do things like that. And I know I've already spoken with Ms. Wolf in terms of a continental breakfast and for the day. This is something probably beyond that I see. This size. Very sophisticated, this with the next like this.
And then the board would be doing candidate interviews on the 25th.
Yes, ma'am.
And do you, is that an all-day event? Is that a half-day event? What?
I would plan it all day. I would start with a continental breakfast. We pull your committees together again to just give them a quick reminder and walk through the day's events, how they'll provide feedback to you. We'll do that with a survey mode also, and it would be a merging of the questions that they heard answers to with their impressions of certain characteristics that are linked to those questions, but they're not a match for match question by question. And then the responses are on like a 5-point like, in terms of integrity, how from what you heard, in terms of leadership, in terms of communication, from what you heard in that interview, might be a little bit more detailed than that. Obviously, the phrase, did that person impress you? 5, is it, that's the kind of feedback you get from your advisory committee. We'll compile it quickly electronically, and you will have ratings from your advisory committees on all of these attributes of all of the candidates before you make a decision, part of the decision process.
all right, one more.
Sure.
So you're asking these committees to share with their board representative their personal perceptions.
They're
So-
sharing it with all of you.
Correct.
They're turning their stuff in. We can segregate out, we will segregate out whether that feedback came from which group. But you're not going to necessarily know it was Mr. Jones that gave this particular.
Right, so the community committee is not gonna submit a name, the top three to you. Yeah, so it's been done that way in the past year, so I was just making sure that when they start voicing these opinions, each single one is gonna have their own perspective, and we didn't get the top three discussed.
Our experience has been that it isn't really helpful for boards if they get boxed in by the community.
Right.
They select.
Okay.
Advise.
Yep, I like it better this way. Thank you. That's all I have.
Board, person have question?
No, sure.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
So on your timeline here, you have advisory committee orientation. So does the advisory committee look at all the returned packets? What do they look at?
What do they,
Right.
they interview the clients and they have their resumes and packets with them on the morning.
Which is which day? So they are only interviewing the finalists. Okay, so that's what I was, so. So at some point. So the advisory committee is not gonna do anything between orientation and the 25th, is that right? Or?
No, we will be them to get their input on questions that will be asked by their committee on. Which is one of the main reasons that it was important for us to get email addresses, not just to send out that letter, that draft letter that I handed out a few minutes ago. So that we can get them squared away on some of the other feedback issues that we need prior to the point.
Yeah, I didn't see them listed here specifically. That's why I was trying to figure out what their role was and when it was. So on the 25th. That day includes the advisory committee. Interviewing the finalists, but we have to determine the finalists. On the 11th. Okay.
Really, only people. That seven. Sweet, the seven. Left, but he really had a heck of a lot of homework between 7th and 11th, and thought it through. We think we can let, this sort of expects you to be somewhat confidential between the 3rd and the 7th, because the window hasn't been closed yet officially. But I think that's a reasonable way to accommodate those folks that can't be. I don't know if somebody got another thought today. I mean, I know what your agenda said, it was discussion about this.
So we will determine finalist on the 11th. And then we have approximately 2 weeks before we actually do the interviews of these finalists.
Make multiple back and forth before you.
Okay, I was just wondering. Okay. All right, that's all the questions I've got.
Anybody else? Mr. Gill, questions?
Yeah, the one other thought that I should have mentioned. When we last met, I think we discussed that there were at least two categories of people in the community that deserved a place at the table, but it might not have been, it should have been maybe a group decision and not been checked off against one of your 3 nominees that you did. And I think that was a teacher representative, not the 3 teachers that you guys each nominated necessarily, but somebody who spoke as a representative of teachers. think we talked about that. And I think we may have said the same thing in terms of any footload leaks, that it shouldn't have just fallen to somebody that maybe agree upon, maybe there'll be multiple people just by the way you nominated folks. But I thought we had said that no board member would only would sacrifice, I don't know how to express this, that it doesn't sound, but you wouldn't sacrifice one of your nominees to meet the expectation of the full board, that those specific groups would have a representative on the committee. Does that explain well, Madam President?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Sir, I reached out to the Pueblo Visleta and to the governor. And I talked to him a couple other things, and I probably made 3 calls to him over this issue and haven't had a return call. So I did reach out. Yeah. I know he wanted to, but
So this memo for the committee members, have you sent that out? to the group?
Well, didn't want to wait for everyone, so we send it out, individual names, not just the, dear advisory member. And we can start making phone calls. We have these phone numbers very quickly. It's just giving them less time to start their schedule for those orientation. They have contact.
I think that most everybody gave, like you said, an email address. If you were not one of the board members that gave email addresses, maybe get with me at the end of the meeting and I'll let you know. You may need to contact Mr. Sullivan or maybe Mrs. Gutierrez and give them an email address or find one by then. But yes, everybody who had an email address, I did authorize them to get this first letter of memorandum. So yeah.
We've already gotten responses to the letter. I
Okay.
spoke with Ms. Gutierrez before I left. And she said that the people that received it, any number, had already said, thank you so much. We're excited about the opportunity. We want to help the district, which is what I expected to hear. But if there is anybody who we hear from quickly who can't make it either to the orientations or the interview day, we want to let you know quickly enough so you can sub in before we miss the orientations. Okay? We don't want you to lose out on having your representation on these committees if we can get it done.
Yes, Madam President, I have a question on the requirement. Is it too late to add or delete any requirement or?
That's on websites all over the place, even some places make paperable, sir.
Mr. Smith?
So, Ms. Garcia, as the board has already during its retreat, discussed and basically consented to a plan, and then later on in the board meeting, we actually voted on portions of this. I would like to move that we take no action on item number 8 and adhere to the plan that was approved by the board.
So you're making a motion that we just proceed as we've been proceeding.
That is correct,
Basically.
as presented.
As presented. And just to clarify that before I get a second, that would be moving forward with this timeline, gentlemen, because it's changed from the last one. So if everybody can live within this time frame and doesn't have any objection to this timeline and understands the work they're going to have to put in prior to that July 11th meeting and making arrangements for attending that July 11th meeting, executive session, then there's a motion by Mr. Smith that we continue to move forward as our timeline and everything else was provided. So I guess I need a second to that motion.
second.
Any other discussion, gentlemen?
Okay, discussion,
Yes.
board interviews. The Monday, July 24th reception, that's evening, is that the plan?
My recommendation, Madam President, Mr. Vickers, would be something like 7 to 9. A reception in the evening after dinner, after hours.
So if we're
And, it
approving
can be
this,
as elaborate or not at all as you'd like.
yeah, if we're approving this, we probably should set that.
And we would also have some time to give a time frame. I think, as we move forward, if we're not changing the date, if we're just adding a time that's convenient for a reception. But if you want to include a time now, we can include a time for that reception now.
Well, I was gonna leave it to the liberty of the people we're paying to do this.
Well, have you done something like this before, and what would make good sense for you? It doesn't matter to me.
So we have done it before and we did it in the evening and it was well attended. So I thought it was a great idea for the community and business members to come and meet the candidates. So it might not have been that great for the candidates, but it was really good for our community.
That's the most important thing.
Right.
So I would, because I will be traveling from out of town on that Monday. And I'll be about a 6-hour drive away. So I would like to know if we're gonna do it in the evening. I can do it in the evening. So can we set a time?
So, Mr. Smith, I don't know if you would want to amend your motion to include that the reception be in the evening. And then if Mr. Hedon would second that, and then the reception, of course, isn't a requirement by all board members to be present. I would imagine it's optional, but
I believe
important.
you, if you knew you could have, I believe.
We'd have to post it, right? We'd have to have that.
President,
Yes, sir.
at this time, I would like to withdraw my second. Smith amend his motion.
Go ahead, sir, if you'd like to.
I would, however, are there any other?
Questions?
Yeah, about the time frame, so I don't have to do this again. Oh,
I think the 7 to 9.
Madam President,
Yes.
members of the board, interim superintendent, I just wanted to address the question of the proxy. Under Robert Rules of Order, you can give another member a proxy. You can also, if I would be attending that meeting as legal counsel, you could give me a proxy. Those would be, those needed to be given in writing so that when the person is exercising the proxy, they have a document that says, this is the proxy, it has to be signed. So if you're going to be out of town, you may want to make arrangements for that in advance. And you have to, when you include that proxy, include the list of names. That way it's clear from the written proxy what the 4 names would be. Mr. Sullivan also clarified that perhaps you would want to categorize those names 1, 2, 3, 4, with 1 being the person that you are most interested in. That way, if there was any additional discussion, the person who holds the proxy would know what is most important to the individual that you would be co-representing at that meeting.
And if we went with the proxy, it would be because they couldn't appear either telephonic or
Meaningfully
internet or-
participate.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I highly discourage the use of proxies, especially in this significant type of event. However, sometimes they're simply unavoidable. So I wanted to explain the use of proxies for you, given the very short timeline and the fact that there would be no opportunity to change the dates.
I think, Mr. Smith, that doesn't include on your motion, but just informative.
sure. So one more question, please. So, assuming we can let you fill Tuesday, July 25th, the schedule on those days, because obviously they're going to be one right after another, not all at the same time. So you're going to have perhaps the community interviews in the morning.
It's a rotation. Depending upon, we have a matrix that would rotate the candidates among the committees. And then our intention is to also having them do, the candidates do an on the fly or on the spot writing activity to a scenario that requires some thought. And we build that into the rotation also. So I was telling Ms. Wolf that we would need 3 interview rooms and a 4th room for them to settle into a computer and have a response to a prompt scenario. But it's a rotation. If you were seeing candidate A at 8:30, candidate B is with the staff at 8:30, and candidate C is with the community and parents at 8:30, and then at 9:30, we flip. Or if there are 4 candidates, you know, the 4th is in writing assessment. I mean, it's just a wheel that we work through a matrix. But it starts in the morning. You'll get through those 3 or 4 candidates by about noon, have a break, and then come back and beat each other bloody. I'm teasing.
Right, so the reason I'm asking this is because in your notes, you say that they should share with their Board of Education their personal perceptions. I'm wondering, there's gonna be a time before the executive session, after the interviews, for this to happen?
What we have had to do on a number of occasions is work through lunch to compile that data from the, there's usually a few minutes between interviews. We ask the advisory committees to try to fill out those response sheets quickly while it's still on their mind and they don't confuse 2 candidates, that type of thing.
Okay.
It only takes them a few minutes to go through that survey and submit it. It takes us longer to actually compile the data because we don't have a machine we can feed them into.
So would it be fair to say that you will schedule these times though?
Oh,
For
absolutely.
these interviews, so I don't
Yeah,
have to.
no, we
include that.
set up the whole schedule, the feedback system, all of that. Yes.
Okay,
Okay, so back,
I'll withdraw my motion.
okay, go ahead, Mr. Smith.
I'd like to make a motion that we take no action on item number 8 and adhere to the plan with the caveat that the reception on Monday, July 24th will take place from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And the interviews on Tuesday, July 25th will be on the time scale set forth by the organization running this superintendent search.
We'll have a draft to you well in advance.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
so I got a motion by Mr. Smith. Do I get a second? Do I get a second?
So
Okay, so Mr. Hedon seconded your motion. Was there a question? Do we need to clarify the motion?
I think we have a question about the location. If it'll be at the TRC or if it'll be at the central office.
I think location doesn't need to be in the motion. That's something we can work out with staff. Is that correct, Mr. Sullivan? The location of these events can be worked out with staff. We don't need to add it to.
that needs to be.
Okay, I don't think it
That's
does.
kind of detail.
Okay.
Attorney thinks it.
No, I think that's fine. Okay. I thought that was the answer. So I got a first and a second. Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to call for the vote. Mr. Hedon. Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan, and we will be working together to make sure we meet your timeline, sir.
Thank you guys very much. We appreciate it.
That brings us to item number, I think this would be 9 on the agenda now, approval of the consent items. Gentlemen, you have the consent items in front of you. We've had an opportunity to review the consent sheet. I need a motion on the consent items.
Garcia,
Yes, sir?
make a motion that we approve the consent items with the exception of item 16A1, schedule of checks written. Item 16CJ, organic technologies for district-wide turf and ground management supplies and services, CES contract. Item number 16E1, Anchor Built Incorporated Peralta Elementary School Portable Relocation Project, Las Unas School Portion 31165 bond split with PSFA. Item number 16E2, CES care of ACOM Technologies Peralta Elementary School Double Portable Relocation Project, Las Unas Schools Portion 31165 bond. And item number 16E4, CES care of ACOM Technologies VMS Window and Door Replacement Project 31172 bond.
So Mr. Smith has made a motion on the consent items. I need a second. Mr. Bennett seconds the motion on the consent. Any discussion, gentlemen, on the consent items? Hearing any, the courts, I'm going to call for the vote. Mr. Guidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. So the consent items have all been approved except for item 16AI, schedule of checks written. Section 16CJ, organic technology for district-wide turf. 16EI, anchor bill, Peralta Elementary School portable. EI2, technologies for Peralta Elementary double portable relocation project. And for item E, CES and ACOM technologies for Valencia Middle School window and door replacement. All other items have been approved. That brings us to Dr. Elder's superintendent report. I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Elder. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We have the pleasure during the school year of having our schools come and present to us at each and every meeting. So we get to hear from our schools across the whole entire year. And what I've done for tonight is I've put together a district-wide year-end review. And I think that you're going to be really pleased with what you see when you see all of the work compiled for our district. I'd like to thank the cabinet and the staff who were integral in collecting all of this information. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I've organized the presentation around the board priorities that were identified in the retreat on May 31st. At that retreat, we had some conversation around wanting to move towards a strategic plan, and board members gave us 7 priorities to sort of start to think about. And so I've organized the presentation around those 7 priorities so we can start to look at, next slide, please, the priorities, the alignment to the foundational assumptions that were passed and put into policy last meeting, and our 2022-23 district accomplishments. And so the first board priority, consistent excellence in every school, aligns to the foundational assumptions. Let's go ahead and catch up to me. We need to, there you go, to the foundational assumptions that every student deserves a rigorous, robust, and complete curriculum at their grade level, that every student is capable of engaging with grade level standards and rigorous content and deserves world-class instruction and materials to support them. Every student deserves to use technology as a tool for learning and a tool to express their learning in creative ways. And every student deserves to have the opportunity to learn in multiple languages, just as their global peers. So part of ensuring excellence for all students is focusing on all of our groups of students, including our students with individualized education plans. And so our total number of IEPs this year were 1,700. Those were put together by 21 IEP support coaches, implemented by 51 special education teachers, including, as well as our general education teachers, including DD pre-K, CEL teachers, and gifted teachers, and supported by 52 instructional support providers. Those are our therapies, our OTs, our PTs, our SLPs. Additionally, we're very proud that we held our first Special Olympics event in the Los Lunas schools with over 200 students participating. Another component of consistent excellence in every school is ensuring that our English learners are served. And so we served 1,044 English learners, and we have 44 students in our new bilingual programming this school year. In addition, you, the board, passed policy to establish a bilingual SEAL pathway, and we celebrated our first bilingual SEAL recipient, Emily Chaparro, at Valencia High School. We demonstrate excellence in advanced course options as well. We offered 48 dual credit classes in conjunction with UNM Valencia County, which enrolled 662 high school students. We also offered 31 advanced placement classes with an enrollment of 752 AP students. We've demonstrated excellence in learning with technology, with our digital learning coaches performing 75 coaching cycles. We opened 10 innovation and design labs. We trained 15 computer lab teachers in the district on how to utilize the equipment within the innovation and design lab. We had 2 of our educators so far. We will have more obtain their ISTE, their International Society of Technology and Education certification. We were awarded 2 new Apple Distinguished Schools at DVE and LLE. In addition, students across the district participated in the Los Lunas Film Festival. Best of Show winners were showcased at the Los Lunas Starlight Theater on December 15th. Foundational to demonstrating excellence with technology is keeping the technology working. And so our technology department addressed 7,620 help desk tickets, purchased 1,800 new MacBooks for high school students, 500 new Dell PCs for staff, had an 80% rate for senior buyout for their computers the last 3 years, improved internet bandwidth, provided digital pencils and charging stations, and improved Apple TV cabling for improved Wi-Fi connectivity. Demonstrated excellence in implementing assessment. I'm not going to read all of the numbers, but this adds up to a lot of assessments given through our assessment and accountability department. These are all required by the state of New Mexico and are reported through STARS. We had some celebrations that we did update Power School systems for more efficient processes. We did a lot of cross-training with our accountability department and partnered with Cognia, iStation, and Horizon Education for improved assessment training. We demonstrated excellence in out-of-school time learning, activities, and athletics, with 2,800 students participating in 165 after-school clubs, 400 high school students in 8 NMAA activities, and 677 high school students in 14 NMAA sports. Finally, we demonstrated excellence in pre-K with 294 total preschool-aged students served, 4 developmentally delayed preschool classrooms, and a total of 12 New Mexico pre-K classrooms. Our next board priority is around career preparation. This also aligns to the COVID feedback that we received when we were aligning the COVID funds to our district priorities. That was number 1 across all role groups when we were doing our COVID input to get students involved with career exploration and preparation much younger. And so one of our foundational assumptions does address that, and that every student deserves to connect the relevance of learning as they explore their future career opportunities. To accomplish this priority, we have career and technical education and career exploration. This slide gives us an overview of our career and technical education pathways. We have work-based learning for all students. At Century High School, we build Edgenuity out with many different possibilities for flexibility. We have virtual reality welders for innovation in their lab, and are expanding the virtual reality labs for all students. You can see our new expected for 23-24 in each column. Both Los Lunas High School and Valencia High School have welding programs, Project Lead the Way, health careers or biomed at VHS, ag. Both schools have JROTC. Los Lunas High School had a criminal justice pathway, video media, and the Comp APS dual credit. Valencia High School had mechanics and their transportation, and their amazing lab, their culinary and hospitality program, cosmetology, and Mesa. For career exploration, we started a new program this year called Be Able. And Be Able aligns the literacy that students need to be successful in future careers. It helps them explore their strengths and what they're good at and their interests. And so we had 347,144 Be Able lessons completed to accelerate literacy growth and career exploration in our district this year. Students take a RIASEC assessment, and that helps them see what their strengths are. The top career strengths in our district for students were artistic, which is the A, the green A, enterprising, which is the orange E, and realistic, which is the red R. As our students looked at their possible selves and aligned their interests to possible future careers, in this particular graph, you can see that we have circles of different sizes. The largest circles represents the most number of students that had that particular career as their top choice. And so you can see our students aspire to be actors, fine artists, musicians, film, architects, graphic designers, hairdressers, interior designers, lawyers, and makeup artists. We've seen some great growth in literacy rates, particularly in grades 2 through 5, where you see students have exceeded expected growth in all of those grade levels. I'm going to talk more about communities of practice for educators in a moment, but we did have feedback from our educators that shows that across the board, there is broad agreement that learning to use Be Able within their community of practice has helped them to bring student strengths, interests, and career interests into their instruction. Now, note that we have some work to do there to grow that number so that we get more blue and more red, and bring more of those oranges into the blue and red and reduce the green for next school year, but we're off to a really good start. This is a program that's going to take multiple years to really implement well and see the benefits of. And finally, we awarded 95 CTE industry certifications this year. Our next board priority is security and safety. We had 202 events that were handled by our SROs and campus security. We had 11,946 work orders completed and 3,086 preventative maintenance work orders completed, all to keep students and staff safe and secure. Our transportation department also safely and securely brought students to and from school each day, for a total of 4,898 miles per day, 881,640 total miles for the school year, 3,921 daily riders, and 64 licensed drivers, including office staff. We also acquired some new buses, activity buses, software, and received a fueling infrastructure grant. The next priority identified by the board is to recruit and retain staff. And as part of that, we hold the foundational assumption that every employee deserves to be supported in staying current in the most effective practices in their field, implementing new initiatives, and perfecting their ability to improve student learning. Under recruitment and retention, you can see the total number of new employees that were processed this school year, 360 compared to last year at 381. Our total number of resignations and retirements may alarm you, but it shouldn't. In 2021-22, we had 69 resignations and retirements, but that counted just individuals with full contracts and not like your part-timers, like your aide-de-camps and crossing guards. This year in 22-23, we did have 152, but again, the difference between that is not alarming because it includes different categories. Total number of substitute teachers this year increased significantly up to 145 from 104. They've been very hard to come by, and our personnel department has worked very hard to increase our substitute force. That helps teachers to feel secure in their job too, because they know that if they're sick or they have an emergency, there will be somebody there to take their class. And we'll continue to work on that. In addition to recruiting and retaining, we need to grow and support the staff that we have. We had 30 new teacher induction program participants. We held 180 district-wide communities of practice and provided learning innovations coaching, digital learning coaching, and IEP support coaching. Feedback on our communities of practice. We had many of our teachers agreed that participation in their community of practice helped them to stay current in the most effective practices in their profession. You can see we have some work to do there too, and we'll continue to take feedback at every All Learner Day in the communities of practice to continue to improve that system. In our communities of practice, we worked towards using a task analysis protocol to help support teachers in assigning grade level work to students. We know from research that a lack of access to grade level work negatively impacts student achievement, no matter what grade. And so we worked very hard on that in our community of practice. And you can see we still have some work to do, but we had about half agreed that working on that has supported them, and a lot that were neutral. So we'll continue to work on that next school year. The next role group that we work with on developing is our school leaders. And we have 3 strategies to develop our school leaders so that they can support teachers and support smooth operations in their school. One is we have a principals community of practice and assistant principals community of practice within our district. We have performance coaching for all of our administrators in district, and we partner with the Public Education Department Priority Schools Bureau to support with additional professional development. So this year, all 15 of our principals participated, 18 assistant principals. We know from research that the best way to improve instruction, the most important thing for school leaders to do is be hands-on in the classrooms. And so I'm very proud that our school leaders this year performed 4,033 walkthroughs with feedback with our teachers this year. This is in addition to their formal evaluation that's required by the state. This is a huge accomplishment. Those school leaders were supported by 6 in-district performance coaches who visited with them for a total of 202 performance coaching sessions. We have also demonstrated excellence in developing all staff. Our maintenance department, security department, and food service departments also provides professional learning during our all learner days for their role groups. Next board priority, health and wellness. In 22-23, we had 57,217 health office visits. 565 employees were trained in crisis prevention intervention, 1,347 social work sessions, and I'm glad you're sitting down, 1,683 meals were served, breakfast and lunch in our district. When you think about that amount of food, it is awe-inspiring. Our nursing department provided the medical conditions that students were seen for. You can see that it's mostly asthma, allergies, and ADHD with a sprinkling of absolutely everything else. They see it all in the nurses' offices. So we thank them for that. Under health and wellness, COVID-19 continued to be a reality this school year. There were 2,256 close contacts identified, but 77.1% of those were able to remain in school while mitigating virus spread. And we did conduct 2,842 COVID tests at school sites this school year. Next board priority is communication and community engagement. We held 12 formal tribal collaboration meetings. We had 4 Indian Education Committee parent meetings throughout the school year and onboarded 3 Native American liaisons, one at the high school, one at middle school, and one at elementary level. I conducted listening tours with all 15 sites and held 4 parent forums. More on those in a future board meeting. Our Twitter and Facebook accounts kept updated with school events. We onboarded a Board of Education policy input process and started a Remind communications software as our new avenue for two-way communication between educators and families. Last and finally, your priority of fiscal responsibility and transparency. You've seen a lot of presentation with our budget presentations over the last couple of months, but I wanted to just give you a high-level overview of accomplishments there. We processed 35,665 paychecks with our $221,531,869 total budget. That includes 62 funds that need to be managed. We processed 6,164 purchase orders, 17,400 checks and invoices. And with all of that, and that's a lot, only had 2 audit findings, resulting in a low-risk designation. And so that is a high-level overview of 2022-2023. I'm very proud of our staff and all of the accomplishments that we've had this year.
Wow, well, Dr. Elder, excuse me, I'm sorry. First of all, I want to thank you for putting all this together. I'd like to thank the staff that had to give her all the numbers to put all this together. And on top of that, I just want to applaud our district. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, any questions of the superintendent on her year in review?
Ms. Garcia,
Go ahead, sir.
just a couple of comments. So obviously, this is a testament to the work that's being done in this building, but I would like to acknowledge the parents for getting these kids to these athletic events and pushing them to do their homework. It shows in the participation in activities and athletics, and also in the results that you showed on there, which is also a testament to the remarkable work that our principals and our school site staff does, our teachers, our aides, and the work that all of you do. It's just incredible that we can get results like this, and you guys are just like the top of the line. We've always said that. So bravo to all of you for your hard work, and it's something to be proud of. It really reflects well on all of you. So thank you.
No, good.
Okay. So you know,
Madam President, Brian's coattails here. There's no way Dr. Elder could have been able to present this without you guys doing that hard work. I mean, you guys are in the trenches and grinding away. So thank you guys for doing what you guys do.
awesome, great presentation. Thank you, Dr. Elder.
Yeah, thank you. It really takes every single one of us to educate our kids every day.
I did have one question. I forgot. On that test that you provided the students that gave them a career, what grade did you test them? And yeah, that happened this year. So what grade do you test?
So they started in 2nd grade and all students through 12th grade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was the ones that came out. That's interesting. I thought those jobs and careers that they're interested in was very interesting. Okay, thank you. Okay, go on with your report now.
Absolutely. Next, you have in front of you a draft of our Board of Education meeting dates for 2023-24. I know that July is very heavy. And so I just wanted to see if there were any comments or anything we can do to make sure that we are taking care of our board members, because you work super hard as well in that schedule. But if you want to go ahead and take a look and offer any comments.
First, I would like, gentlemen, for you to look on this. This would be our meeting dates, of course, going with 2 meetings every month from now until the end of the next school year. You'll notice every 3 months we've built in a work session. This would be hopefully so you can put it down on your calendar and hopefully make ourselves available. It's been somewhat difficult to get all 5 of us together for work sessions or for special workshops that happen throughout, that may be needed throughout the year. Keeping in mind that if that work session is not needed, we'll take it off and we won't be announcing that meeting. But for now, I did want you to pencil it on your whatever tablet, whatever you use for your calendar. And I do this mostly for me because it's really good to plan ahead and mark out those dates as possible work sessions. Any other questions on the meeting dates or anything you'd like to see changed? No. All right. Thanks, Dr. Elder. We'll accept that as our meeting date calendar. Next.
All right, thank you. Finally, under other comments, the Public Education Department did release school designations on Friday. And I wanted to give you a little bit of information about it. And so I'm going to call Carla Dow, our Director of Assessment, Innovations, and Accountability, to the podium to give us just a little bit more information. This is something we'll continue to talk about all year long, but I just wanted you to have a little introduction.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Interim Superintendent Dr. Elder. Thank you for letting me speak today on New Mexico school designations. So New Mexico Public Education Department had these embargoed and they just released them this week. So media has these numbers, this information, along with anybody else in the public that can take a look at them. So we wanted to go over them with you and realize that I did have a meeting today with several other assessment coordinators around the state. And some of these numbers, it's a very difficult calculation that goes into coming up with these designations. They're not completely accurate. For now, they said use these numbers, and August 1st, they will release adjusted designations. So some schools that have a designation may not have one come August 1st and vice versa. So that's what we're going to look at today. Next slide, please. So the objective of these designations is to comply with the requirements for school improvement as detailed under Every Student Succeeds Act. And New Mexico is required to identify the following categories of schools. Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, CSI. Targeted Support and Improvement, TSI. Additional Targeted Support and Improvement, ATSI. More Rigorous Intervention, MRI. Traditional Schools and Spotlight Schools. Some additional terms that you'll see in here are SD, which is Students with Disabilities, and EL, which is English Language Learners. So there's text in here, but the main part of it is the Comprehensive Support and Improvement Student Group, Title I schools that were previously identified for additional targeted support and improvement, but did not meet the statewide criteria for exiting will be here. Schools with improvement graduation rates. We want to look at a 4-year graduation rate of 66.67%. And comprehensive school support and improvement of low performing schools, scoring at the bottom 5% of all Title I schools in the state. And our schools that fell under this category are Los Lunas Elementary, which is a CSI school for students with disabilities, was the subgroup that they looked at there. Our Los Lunas Family School, again, CSI school, and PERF stands for performance. Overall performance of that school was in the lower end. Next one. Next one is targeted support and improvement, TSI schools. These are public schools with one or more student subgroups that met the state's definition of consistently underperforming schools. And the additional targeted support and improvement, ATSI, are schools with one or more groups performing as poorly as the lowest 5% of Title I schools identified in CSI. And our schools that fall under that category are Ann Parish, with the students with disabilities as well, Valencia Elementary, and Tomei Elementary, which has students with disabilities and EL students that were looked at in this category. The next one is more rigorous intervention. If a CSI school does not satisfy the exit criteria within the identification cycle, then they're identified as MRI. And this is a designation that they look at more restructuring, restarting some really targeted interventions to turn a school around. And Century High School is our school there. Just a note, Claire Toledo has done an incredible job with our opportunity schools and really doing some innovative things at that school and turning it around. You've heard some of their reports that they have given here at the board as well. The next one is traditional school support. These are schools that are above the threshold for support and improvement. It doesn't mean that they're all that and don't have to do anything else. There's still a lot of hard work to do, but these are schools that do not have a designation for improvement at this time. So we have 9 schools that fall in this category: Bosque Farms, Desert View, Peralta, Raymond Gabaldon, Sundance Elementary, Los Lunas Middle School, Los Lunas High School, Valencia Middle School, and Valencia High School, all in this category. And then the next slide is they have New Mexico Spotlight Schools. These are schools scoring above the 75th percentile of all of the schools in New Mexico, and that we have Catherine Gallegos Elementary that falls in that category. And schools that are designated with these categories, CSI, TSI, ATSI, and MRI, will receive targeted interventions, detailed improvement plans, and additional grant funding that will be applied for to address the deficits to exit these schools from the school designations that they have. Again, the state will release their updated school listing on August 1st. So these may change. The numbers look a little wonky on some of them because we know what the scores look like when we test, but I don't anticipate we'll see a lot of movement. And I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions?
Madam President, I have one question. You know, on the schools that are designated, is that going to come from the PED, how to do it, or does that come from our own district, and how do we increase these?
No, well, the designation comes from public education department, and it's a really complicated formula that they use. They use graduation rates, they use attendance rates, they use performance levels, test scores. There's a whole slew of identifiers that go into that.
So we will be doing the things that are going to improve them and not really getting guidance from PED.
They do have guidance documents for each category, and then we, together with Public Education Department, develop a plan, a very detailed plan on how we will work to improve these schools. And a lot of the items that are on that list from Public Education Department, we're already starting to do this year. So remember, these designations come from data that is from 2021. So they're a couple of years behind.
Very
Madam President, yes. So this data is released from PED. And we see the designations that some of our schools have. And we have like maybe I'm gonna ask too much, like a mid-year review on where we're at.
Absolutely.
I mean, to see what we need to do if we're failing or we're spending energy and time somewhere in the wrong place.
And we do that. We compile data from mid-year testing. We have interim assessments that we give 3 times a year. We have the big summative assessment that the state gives at the end of the year, but we do beginning, middle, and end. And I compile all that data and provide it to Dr. Elder, beginning of the year, middle of the year, and then end of the year as well.
Any other questions? Mr. Smith?
So based on the 2 presentations, this first one, which is the data is a lot older since 2021. And what we're planning on doing in the future after our year-end review, I can see a correlation to where we're going to improve on this stuff. So thank you for your presentation.
They run in 3-year cycles. So
3-year.
up until this point, we've been operating off of 2017 data. And so now this was just released now. So this will take us into 3 years again before they get the next designations, unless they change August 1st.
So had we moved up or down on some of these designations, we would have been looking from 3 years ago. So maybe if and when either we get an update or whatever happens in the next 3 years, maybe the comparison of where they were and that we came out of that designation would be helpful, to know if we did. I know on our standards, we're working on that, but on PED standards, if we hit it.
Correct, and that would be wonderful. The only problem is it's a moving target
Okay.
because their criteria changes
Okay.
as to how they evaluate those to some extent. So, but we can still look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And so in closing, I am absolutely confident in the academic work that we have set in the last 2 years. These things take time to come to full implementation and fruition, but our initiatives align very closely with the PED recommendations to help improve schools that are in that lowest 5% or have designations. And so I'm very confident that we're on the right track already. And where we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments. But I think that we have a very good basis to improve already. And so that concludes my report.
Thank you. And Ms. Superintendent, when we have our August update from PED, you'll give us that update when the time comes,
Yes.
if it changed.
Yes.
Thank you. So I believe that takes us to item number 12 of our agenda now, our amended agenda, which is going to be the discussion and possible action for a property purchase.
Madam Chair, on item number 12, I move that we authorize the board president to act as discussed in executive session.
So for item number 11, I have a motion that we direct me to follow the direction of the board in executive session. Can I get a second? So I got a motion and a second. Any discussion, gentlemen? Not hearing any. Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
So I guess I wrote the item numbers down. We are on item, which number?
I thought it was 12, but like I said, we've moved our agenda a little bit.
Right, so, okay. So just to clarify, will you say the item number and what the top subject is?
11.
Yeah,
11.
discussion and possible action for a purchase of property.
Okay, I just wanted to make perfectly clear. So I was actually approached by Ms. Montoya, as we are neighbors and or friends. And I immediately guided her to the superintendent. So I feel based on this to maintain transparency and integrity, I feel that I need to abstain from this vote.
So Mr. Smith has abstained. Mr. Bennett, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes for possible action for purchase of property. Next, we're moving down to overview of capital funding. I believe Ms. Tracy, you're up.
Hey, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Elder. I would like to do just an overview of our capital outlay funds. So many times when I have gone over and over, operational seems to be the main focus. However, there are a lot of other supportive funds, and we're kind of here to discuss their importance and describe about them. So in this overview, I'll be listing the different funds, the budgeted amounts, the description of their uses, how they're generated, and those amounts. So the first column on the left has the actual fund number, which is a PED number. So sometimes when you look at the checks written off to the right-hand side, there'll be some numbers. Those are those numbers. When you see a 31100, that is a PED number saying that that is the Go Bond Building Funds. Here at Los Lunas, we kind of adapt to our own numbers where we kind of have changed the last few digits to describe the type. So it might be bond money being spent at Valencia Middle School. And so it has a specific number, but when it rolls up to the PED, they're all 31100s. So, and though that fund is the Go Bond Building. This for the next current fiscal year, fiscal 24, the budget for that is 27,178,366. This has not just the funds balance that we are leaving in the current year that we're at, but also the anticipated sale of the $11 million in bonds that we just spoke about earlier in today's meeting. The next fund is the 31200. This is an award that we received this year. I have not seen that fund used. I saw we had the account number before, but in the last 10 years that I've been watching the funds, this is the first year we ever received this, and it was an award for $2.9 million, and it is to be able to be used over the next 3 years. Counting the current year we're in is the first year. So we have 2 more years. So FY24 will be the second year. And I show that 2.4 million is left. So that's kind of a fund we didn't receive at the beginning that we weren't aware we were going to receive. 316 is our capital improvements. Often you hear it called HB 33, or you hear it called 3 mil. And next fiscal year I have budgeted $8,688,563. The next fund is 31701, which is capital improvements. You hear sometimes that's called SB9, local, or 2 mil. And next year I have budgeted $3,082,176. The next fund is 31703, which is the SB9 state match cash. So that fund is a fund that we receive a state match because we have the fund 31701. And for next fiscal year, I have budgeted $1,450,374. The next fund is 41300, which is our Go Bond Services. So this is where when we receive the money for our 3100 Go Bond Building, we then will have to repay the principal and interest on that money. And for next year, we have budgeted $18,568,725 for future payments. Okay, so the uses of those funds, 3100, the Go Bond Building. This is voter approved. So these are some of the things that we had talked, you had listened to Art Melendres talk about how we're going out for voter approval. So we've been very fortunate that the community has been generous enough to allow us to have these funds. So we'll be able to sell bonds. On average, we sell 6 million a year. This last one we had mentioned we'll be selling 11 million, and that is because of when we were allotted the years to be able to sell voter approved, we did not sell one of the years during COVID, everything slowed down and we had the funds and things were not able to get started. So we didn't need to sell bonds at the time. We refrained and now we are doubling up on that year that we missed. 31200, the public capital school outlay. This is the only fund that is not voter approved on this. The state gave us that award to be spent over 3 years. 31600 is another fund that is voter approved, and we receive approximately $4 million per year. 31701, capital improvements SB9, also voter approved, and we receive approximately 1.8 million per year. 31703, SB9 state match. The state match gives us a match, and it's approximately like half of what we receive in the 31701. So if we were to not receive the 31701, if it was not a voter approved, we would not only miss out on the 1.8 million, we would also miss out on the 900,000 per year. And the 41,000, like I mentioned, is because we sell the GO bonds. This is to go towards paying off the debt. So if you kind of tally up those amounts each year, we're receiving almost 12 million in other funds that if we were to not receive by voter approved, that portion, 12 million, would have to come out of our operational budget to fulfill the things that these funds do. So for example, in the 3100, those are going to be your projects that are larger, that when we do construction, when we're building a building, adding on a wing, you know, we had recently a lot of the security upgrades, all of those types of things, the big projects, any type of mostly large construction you'd see in that fund. The 31200, that one is basically anything that we would be able to do for any type of repairs, the same types of expenses that you would see in 31701. So that was just an added bonus fund that we received this year. 31600 is the fund that we purchase a lot of our all of our technology equipment. So that's paying for the laptops and the iPads that children use, the computers that we use at our desk to do our job, a lot of software, like the software that they purchase to, if something happens to an iPad, as say it was stolen, they could cut the iPad off from being able to be used. So there's a lot of all kinds of things that that technology is paying for. It comes out of that fund. The 31701 is all of the repairs that you see. So the portion of repairs that in operational is so minimal. We give like an open PO to the school sites to be able to purchase things as an emergency if they need, a toilet breaks and they need a part right away. That comes out of operational, but the majority of all the projects, all the painting, all the carpeting, everything is coming right out of that 31701. The same thing happens for the repairs with the 31703. However, the state match funds have to only be used on a school site. So if something was to break here in the central office in this boardroom, we would not be able to use state match money. It would have to come out of the 31701. Another rule out of the 31703 is we cannot purchase any type of preventative maintenance. So we can pay for a repair, we can upgrade a classroom with new furniture, but we would not be able to pay, like, for example, Bosque Farms has an elevator that has to be monthly looked at. And so that type of preventative maintenance is not allowed in that fund. So those are the differences between those two. And then, of course, the last fund is just repaying our debt. So those are just some of the ideas, so you can see some of the other funds, like we mentioned earlier in the year-end review, we actually have 62 different funds. So you're, only looking at another 6 here, 6 funds. All the others are like awards, federal and state funds, grants, so. Or some of our self-generated funds. That just gives you an idea, some of the other funds that we have and what we do with them.
Thank you, Ms. Teresa. Gentlemen, any questions? Nope, nope. Why we trust you to do what you gotta do. Thank you. Thank you. So we did remove item 13 from the old agenda. Or the past agenda, I guess I should say. Now we're on what would be, I think now, item number 13, which would be the report requested by Board Member Bennett. An analysis of installing metal detectors at the middle and high schools. Mr. Bennett, I'll turn this over to you of what you're requesting here.
Yeah, Madam President, Dr. Elder, I've had several concerns from people from the community were wanting to see what it would cost to have metal detectors installed at the 3 high schools and the 2 middle schools, and so I requested, and I think Mr. Baca here's got a presentation for us.
Thank you, Mr. Baca.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Elder. First, before I get started with this, I do want to commend this board and previous boards on our commitment to student and staff safety. New Mexico, Los Lunas Schools is quickly becoming a leader in school safety through our SRO programs, through our other safety measures, but also in really making that commitment to protect our staff. Recently, we had an opportunity. We saw one of the systems that had been presented. Now, this system, I'm not going to give a whole lot of detail about the system because I don't want to talk about the technology in case somebody is out there who may not, may wish harm. But the system I'm going to talk about briefly has evolved. Recently, members of the security team and the maintenance team did see a presentation. Now, this system is currently used at Disney World and at the Pentagon. So if you've been to Disney World, you've actually gone through this. I'll describe it as next generation weapon detection. This would use some very proprietary software to actually identify and alert if there is something entering our campus. One of the positives of this program is that it can scan a large number of people in a short time frame, up to 2,000 people per unit. Unlike others, the traditional metal detector, this is actually open air, so you will walk through it, and it's really just risers on the side. There's not like you're walking through a metal detector, like when you're going through the TSA or going something else here. It's also portable, and there is an opportunity that if we choose to go that way, that we could use it for our athletic events. We could actually take it from where we have on our campuses, and if there's another evening event in our auditoriums, that is a possibility that it can be used there. Currently, and this is, there, as far as metal detectors, especially in New Mexico, is something that's brand new. There's something that we have districts. We only have one district currently that's using this system, and that's Clovis. We have 3 districts that are actually in the process of implementing this system. That being Rio Rancho, Taos, and Alamogordo. The challenge with this system and any other system is that the cost and everything is dependent upon the other physical plant and the campus that it's at, if there's any requirements for it. But the huge cost is in the amount of people and personnel that it would take to man these, okay? I will tell you that for each site that we have, each system or each unit that we have, we're looking at anywhere from 3 to 6 people that would have to be there to man the system, okay? Everyone from our greeter, from that is watching the scanner. For those who may have additional responsibilities to detect or find what has set off the alert. Up to they actually have scanners like you would have at TSA when you guys travel. That would be other additions. So the cost of that is really kind of dependent upon it. If we're talking about at our secondary sites and dependent upon what the evaluation says, even if it were just 2 per site, you're looking at somewhere around 40 to 50 additional staff members that would be required to run the system. Now, Dr. Elder and I did have a conversation that we could be creative about how we can utilize current staff, but at minimum, I'm thinking that we probably are looking at about 20 to 25 permanent staff that would be required to operate these systems. Now, that being said, I think that it's definitely a possibility. We should continue to look at it. I think that, that we've seen it, and for those that have kind of had it demoed, I think it provides us tremendous opportunity. But I do want to be very upfront saying that the cost of it in the human capital cost is a large amount. So I would also encourage, the board members to kind of get some information and really kind of see is how we'll be able to fund this and what kind of changes will we need to the actual physical school site. So without I stand for any questions regarding the presentation, I will say that we are currently looking at other systems. We have reached out to vendors to see if we want to get anyone else to do a presentation. As far as cost, because this could go through an RFP or procurement, I have to be very kind of candid about what the cost is per unit. But I will say that it pales in comparison to the actual employees that would cost to man it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Baca. Questions, Mr. Bennett, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Mr. Baca, there is also some funds available from the state, right, for something like this?
Yes, Madam President, Mr. Bennett. Yes, there is security monies that have been allocated through the state as far as one of the House bills that came out. So there are some monies that are going to be that we've actually asked and request that they be put aside to help offset some of the costs for this. Now, this is a reoccurring cost, but there was additional $40 million that were put into school safety security last session.
And also you're talking about that's 25 employees for all sites. That's complete.
That would be 25 full-time people. There's other ways that we could utilize other employees that are currently crossing guards, bus drivers, teachers that would also go and help. But permanent folks here, we would need at least 25 people that would man the system. But we can get very creative about it. Now, because there hasn't been, we're one of the first to look at this in the state, we would actually have to go into somewhere else to actually see how other districts have implemented it and also afford it and being able to sustain it over the years.
Just a couple. So I was just doing the math, even at 25 people with benefits, you're looking at 1.25 million in salary alone. And they would have to obviously be trained, and this is at $40,000 a year staff. So they'd all obviously have to be trained, because in order to man these things, if somebody comes in that shouldn't be there, they actually have to be able to do something about it. So be some extra training that would be in there. But I appreciate the fact that you brought this, because it is definitely something that we are all concerned with, given our current state of affairs in this world. But yeah, that seems like a lot of money for salary. I guess we have to weigh what it is we're trying to do with what it's going to cost us. Thanks.
So, gentlemen, Mr. Rickers.
Well, I would say that we probably should pursue it further with some more detail as far as cost, and be able to look at a demo and how the system works in practice. You said Clovis has it and
Yes, sir.
has been using it.
Clovis did implement this system this past spring. As far as to get it, all the other districts that I named, Rio Rancho, Taos, and Alamogordo, are currently kind of where we're at, that they're looking at implementing it. But Clovis is the only district that actually had this functioning at some point in the spring semester.
So, yeah, I guess we need to look at hard numbers to make a more informed decision.
Madam President, this is June 20th, 2023. I mean, I'm all for these engineering controls that we can put into place. I'm not even worried. I mean, I am a little concerned with the money, but not as much as what we get in return for it. What I would like to see is, I mean, we're gonna have, I'm just using this as an example, that front door, you're gonna have people come through there. But what I want to see is, before we do that, a detailed security plan, because we can come in that front door, but this back door is wide open. You follow what I'm saying? I'm all for this engineering control, but I would like to see a good security plan that we can put together where you have a vault door in the front, but a screen door in the back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And I'm not saying that's what we have.
Madam President, Mr. Hidon, I guess that is the correct is that we're talking about a minimal amount at each school site, but there's a campus like Los Lunas High School. You probably have, 20 or more entrances to that campus from various spots. So you're right. This would be only as good as our other security plan as we harden that campus with the other exterior doors that will not be monitored by this system.
I would imagine there would be some cost associated with that if there wasn't already something in place. Yeah.
Yes, Madam President.
I know a little bit in that when the courts were looking at something like this at the magistrate level, it's not a big district court or federal court. That was the biggest thing, was the manpower. You got to pay the employee, because you can have it in the door, but you got to have somebody there watching it. And you also have to change our policies. Our policies are going to have to include what's going to happen with what happens when it passes through that door. What kind of search and seizure are we going to allow the officers to do? And there's going to be a lot of questions about what we're going to find and what we're going to search when we find it. So I think that the conversation is really good. And I think our parents have told us in our community comments that security is their number one, the safety of the kids. They want to know that we're doing this. So I think the conversation has to happen. It's a lot of money, more so for people than it is for equipment. But again, I think that, keep us informed. And then when you think you've got yourself a presentation that we could see or witness or see how Clovis is doing it, or maybe some other district, we can get some more information. But there's going to be a lot of unseen things that are going to go along with something like this.
Yes, Madam President, I do believe that this is a step. I do think it is very worthy as a community member, as an employee, and as a parent. Our kids are our number one resources. So I think that we need to give it the time that it deserves and explore all options and see how we can implement this. If there's ways that we can have be more efficient with it, I think it's there, but it is a good start. I did like the system. And as we have more opportunity to demos, then I can invite folks who would like to attend to go see the demos.
So I believe that's taking us through to the finance committee items and what we were looking at on the contested items. Find that document and we'll go through that document. Okay, so for the items that still have to be approved on our consent sheet, let's go to finance committee items. From the meeting that was held on June 13th, there's approval of reports for May 2023 and the schedule of checks written. This was, I believe, Mr. Smith's question. Go ahead, Mr. Smith, and we might need Ms. Tracek.
Correct. So I guess I'm okay since my motion was item number 16 AI and this is item 15 AI.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
So I believe, I believe we're still there. Okay, perfect. So my only question, this is a simple one. Well, for you, it could be a simple one, is going through all of the checks and some of the stuff that we had to approve. We buy a lot of books from a lot of different people. Amazon, there's some books right here on Just Right Readers and stuff like that. I was asked, and I'm asking you, what do we do with the old books? The textbooks, the library books? Are we doing something worthwhile with those or?
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Elder. Yes, we do. I think what we do with it is great. Once a book is out of adoption, so we have those adoptions where every 6 years we have that cycle of which subjects are picked. Once they're out of that cycle, then it is up to the district how they discard those books. So they are marked discard. And then what we are doing is we allow students and parents to pick from the books. So we put them out and they're able to pick in. Actually, I guess a lot of the kids are actually really excited to get those books afterwards. So, but there's rules, and I know Dr. House had gone through just to verify with the PED, and we received their instructions. So after they're out of that adoption period time, it's up to us and how we discarded them. So, and then any books that aren't picked up, which usually, a lot of them are, then they're recycled.
So, and that's textbooks and library books. Yeah. Books. Perfect.
But not to mention though, some of these books, they get used really hard. So after a point, they're pretty beaten, and so some of them are just ready to be recycled.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions on those? That check. Those checks. All right, go ahead, Mr. Smith. Do you have a motion?
So I would like to make a motion that we approve item number 15A1, schedule of checks written.
Okay, so I got a motion from Mr. Smith on 15AI, schedule of checks written. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Bennett. Any discussion, gentlemen? All right, so Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Finance committee items, approval of reports, schedule of checks written is approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
is it possible for us to just, we've eliminated item 13. Is it really necessary to renumber everything after that? Or can we just leave it with the number?
it would make my life easier if we left it. But I guess for recording purposes, if it doesn't matter, then I think we could just name it what it is on the original agenda.
Madam President, members of the board, as long as everybody is very clear about what's being discussed, and there's no question. The only time you don't want to do this is like we were doing with the 13 and 15 over to the 7. But in this instance, I think the motions all referred to 16 anyway, the original motion. Everybody understands we're talking about the original section 16. So
Okay. So I guess the answer is yes. So having said that, going forward on our consent sheet, we are still on finance committee items, item number 16, jumping down to J, organic technologies for district-wide turf and ground management. We have discussion here by 2 board members. So Mr. Smith and Mr. Bennett, I'll start with you. Oh, 3 members, Mr. Hidon as well. So let's start with Mr. Bennett and,
I don't have one.
okay. No, you have a question?
It's
No?
just, he's not on, it's just 2.
Okay, 2. Sorry. My bad, Mr. Smith.
Oh, thank you. So my question was, and I asked this not too long ago, when are we going to consider the fertilization of the field contract? We're going to do another RFP for this particular task that we have.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Elder. Actually, we do not go out for an RFP on organic technologies. We utilize the CES. We go through CES and utilize their pricing, which they have done the competitive bidding on.
Okay, so when we're going through CES, then are we assuming that whatever CES recommends we're gonna do? As far as this organic technology, and the reason I ask this is I think it's a lot of money to fertilize. What do we have, 42-ish acres? Somewhere in there, 43 maybe? I'm pretty sure.
How many acres we have?
I think it's like 43 acres, and it just seems like it's like 3 times the high-end national average to fertilize an acre of grass. So I'm just wondering, when, if in the near future, can this be something that we can discuss?
Let me bring Michelle to discuss this further, if you don't mind.
And maybe the process as well, since
Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Elder. We actually did attempt to go out for an RFP. We did go out for an RFP in 2021 for this particular item. And it only yielded one response. And that response was considered non-responsive at the time because they didn't meet the mandatory requirements. So the RFP was canceled and it did not come for a recommendation to the board. So this was attempted a couple of years ago. So as far as using the CES contract, as far as procurement goes, it has gone through an RFP process. It has been vetted for competition, and it does have a valid price agreement that's able to be used under the procurement code rules for any government agency in the state of New Mexico. So that is what we've been utilizing for this particular item. I can't speak for maintenance and for what their plans are to do for, to take care of the fields and maintain them in this capacity. But I do know that we now have a lot less acreage because the Valencia High School is now turf. So that has reduced some of our need for that product. And I took a quick glance a little bit ago and I noticed that the price that we've paid or the usage of from that company in particular for last year to this year is we've used almost half as much as we did last year. So the prices are dropping as far as the usage goes, just from a comparison of 2 years.
okay, so if I'm understanding it, the checks written, this last statement we just got, last year we paid twice that?
I looked at the amounts that we paid last year. It was about twice as much as it has been so far this year, cumulative over the course of the school year.
Okay, so I guess my question is there an opportunity for us to do this again? You said that one of them got now because we do it.
There was only one response the last time that we did it, so we didn't even have competition at that point in time. We, at this point in time, we didn't have any plans of attempting it again. Again, I see that the usage is dropping. But I don't know, I think that Andy Garcia would have to address what his plans are with the fields and all that part. I don't know that part. But if they feel that they're going to be using it a lot more, we can always entertain that and try again. But I think it depends on what type of system they're wanting to use. So.
Okay. All right, well, I think that's. Appreciate that.
You're right.
So you only had a question about that also?
Yeah. Is organic technology, are they in charge of planting our grass also?
Are you asking me? Oh, I don't know.
I apologize, Madam President, members of the board. I do not know. We would need to get Andy to give us that level of detail.
Because I keep seeing this field, which one was the? That way, right? The football field, yeah.
At the middle school.
Yeah.
I can
When are they gonna-
address the Valencia, the Las Lunas Middle School
Yeah.
football field. That is still being redone part of the renovation contract that we had with the middle school, the one that we've been going through for this past year. The field was part of that. Originally, the landscape architect attempted to do a certain type of treatment to the field and it didn't work. So now they need to wait until now the warmer time. They were going to kill off some of it and reseed it for the Bermuda to grow back, or some type of a Bermuda. And they needed the hot temperatures in order to do it. So that's why it's been sitting there for a while undone.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hidon. Go ahead.
And if I could just maybe you could just shoot. She could get what it cost us to perf the Valencia High School football field. Yeah, no, not now. I just. Yeah, that's fine. Not just laying the sod. Good.
So Dr. Elder, if you can get that information and shoot it to all of us, that'd be good.
I will send it to all board members.
Thank you. So if questions have been answered, I need a motion to approve 16C J.
So move.
I got a motion by Mr. Hidon. Can I get a second? Second by Mr. Bennett. Any other discussion? Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Smith, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Organic technology, district-wide turf and ground management is approved. The next items for discussion, I think, well, I requested these. This is approval for the construction contract for Anchor Build and ACOM Technologies for Peralta School. We had a presentation on this in our finance meeting. I thought it was very interesting. Ms. Tracy, I gotta know if that's you or if that's Tiffany that can give us a little bit more information on those portable buildings. Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Elder. So APS is allowing us to loan a double wide portable that we will be able to use at the Peralta construction. So it'll be able to be used as a classroom. Since it's a double, we'll be able to fit 2 classrooms in it. And so this is the cost to move the portable to our location. So they're not charging us anything for the loan. This is a portable that has been refurbished or is has the carpeting, has the painting, and it is up to code. So all we would have to do is move the portable to our location. We wouldn't have to bring it up to code. We would, however, put in, as you see, another request on there. We'll be adding our projectors that we do and that type of thing. Our fire alarms will be added to it. But this is just to get a portable that is up to code. They've agreed to give it to us for free to loan it. However, we have to pay for the cost of the move and the setting.
And I believe giving it back when we're done is unless we find someone else we want to donate it towards.
Okay, I believe we were trying to hopefully be able, by the time Peralta's done, it would be ready to go to Ann Parish.
Oh, okay.
So would it be after when we no longer need it, or if they, I guess if they need it sooner, then would have to let us know. But at this point, it looks like we'll be able to use it at both locations.
And these contracts were getting it ready, so we would have this building by the time the construction starts in Peralta. And that's one of the reasons I kind of just wanted to make it part of our record tonight, is that when we saw that presentation with Peralta, these are the buildings we're going to use to move the kids into while the construction is happening.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions by board members?
Ms. Garcia, so ACOM getting involved in the move is probably for getting the networking up and stuff like that.
Fire
Yeah, I
alarms,
would assume that that's
yes.
what they're doing. And the windows and door replacement probably for the alarms and stuff. Is that?
That's-
sound about-
that-
They're not
that-
doing windows and doors, so.
That's a different project,
different
different school site.
Right, but I'm just saying, it's also ACOM. So, and it's one of the Ms. Garcia's discussion items, so. In their window and door replacement project, it's ACOM Technologies, I'm assuming that's for alarm. Because they're not door and.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, so Mr. Smith, I think for the Peralta, it's the building itself and getting it up and ready for students. The next item that I wanted to have discussed that does also include ACOM is for what we're doing at Valencia Middle School. But before we get to Valencia Middle School, because I requested the discussion, I will make a motion that the approval of construction contract for item EI or E1 be approved for Anchor Built the Peralta Elementary School portable relocation. I'm sorry, I got a motion and I think I heard Mr. Bennett second. Any other discussion, gentlemen? Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. Next item is 16E2, the CES contract with ACOM Technologies for the Peralta Elementary. I'll make a motion to approve that contract. Can I get a second?
Okay.
Got a second by Mr. Hidon. Any discussion, gentlemen? Mr. Hidon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers,
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion for technologies, CES contract is approved. Next item for discussion, is actually 3 and 4. I wanted, some information and I wanted public record that, Valencia Middle School is, getting some new doors and windows. And I thought this was important that you give us some information on that.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Elder. Yes, Valencia Middle School is getting new windows and doors. They have their existing have been beaten pretty much by the elements, and they're at a point that they need to be replaced. And so this was for the doors, we need ACOM to they're going to use the equipment that we have now, but they're going to be installing the equipment, the security equipment that we have on our doors, on the new doors that we have currently. They'll be using the same equipment, but just installing it on the new doors.
And I know this was coming out of our bond money. This was something that's been needed to be done for a little while. I think that's what you told us in finance. Tiffany, I don't know if you want to give us some more. And is this going to happen in the summer prior to the kids coming in, or how are we going to do this to get it all done?
Sure, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Elder. One of the things that I've been working on for probably with Valencia Middle School, and Ms. Carter can tell you as well, is over the past 2 years, this has been a project that we've eyed as priority. It's taken some time. We've previously completed a purchase order and work done with an architect firm to do the design on these to ensure that we are meeting the CID code requirements that are updated for Windows efficiency, energy efficiency and ratings that we have to follow as CID. So we already have completed that process to where we're at now. We've solicited with a contractor through CES for the construction work. Part of the existing problem is we have hollow metal framed windows. If you go out there, you can see the issues quite substantial, where the metal has just rotted away due to the elements in water and wind, where we can no longer replace broken glass because of the deterioration of the metal. So we are changing from hollow metal to aluminum framing, which will give the whole school a brand new look and storefront look to all the exterior windows only and exterior doors. So it's something we've been planning for quite a while. We wanted to ensure we're doing the right choice for the school to the longevity of those for future use. And then with ACOM Technologies, the last 2 years, we've been working on a lot of our security improvement projects, which includes the access control on all our exterior doors on that campus. So what we want to do is we've already paid for all the hardware, so we want to utilize that. We don't want to have to pay for it again. So ACOM will be coming, they'll be removing it, putting it back onto the doors because they're already on our system. So we just want to ensure we get that put back properly and it's functional with the new doors we're putting in. And so as to answer your question regarding time frame, we're still working with the contractor. A lot of that depends when we can get this process going with the PO, and also CID plan review also has to take place once a PO is issued for this project, and that can take a month's time. And so from there, we will be working with the school and the contractor on either doing a pod at a time. They have some space on that campus where we have some rooms that we can fluctuate. During this time of construction, we'll be focusing on the larger areas such as like the cafeteria, main entrances to the gym, something that's used constantly that we can't really move those kids around. Those will be done during summer times. And then hopefully we can do pod at a time as we have other classrooms available for students to use while their classroom is getting done.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any other questions on this item with the windows and doors at Valencia Middle School? No. Okay, not hearing any. I believe that we approved already E3, which was the construction contract. I'll make a motion to approve E4, which is the ACOM Technologies. I just wanted the information provided to the board. So motion to approve item number 16E4. I need a second. Seconded by Mr. Hudon. Any discussion? Not hearing none, Mr. Hudon?
Yeah.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. So item number E4 is approved. I believe that's it for consent item. Family. So that takes us to item number 18 of the agenda, which is new business board member requests. Oh, wait, I skipped one. I skipped 17. I'm sorry. Approval of local application, IDEA B preschool entitlement, subcontract authorization for 2023-24 school year funding. Elder? That was consent? Then I guess we are on number 18, which is new business, board member requests for topics of upcoming board work sessions and board meetings. Gentlemen, go ahead and we'll start with you, Mr. Hudon, or if anybody wants to intercede and tell me what you want on the next coming agenda. No. Well, we'll be busy anyway, I think on July 11th, so that would make it easy for me. If you change your mind or if something comes up, please get to me as soon as possible. We've moved our board meeting from July 4th, which is a national holiday. So we will talk about announcement of meetings at this time. July 11th, we have a regular board meeting here at Central Office Boardroom at 6 p.m. On July 18th, we'll have an audit committee at Central Office Boardroom at 1 p.m. That's by invitation only. July 18th is our Finance Committee meeting at the Central Office Boardroom here at 3 p.m. And on July 25th, we'll have our regular board meeting here at Central Office Boardroom at 6 p.m. This leads us to the adjournment of the meeting. And before I call for a motion to adjourn, I'm not sure if there's any documents we need to sign with all of the consent. So please, gentlemen, don't leave until you make sure you're not signing any paperwork. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Smith made the motion. Mr. Bennett seconded. Any discussion on the adjournment? Hearing none, Mr. Hudon, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Vickers?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Meeting is adjourned at 8:35 p.m. Thank you.